This video was made possible by Skillshare. Learn what you want to learn with Skillshare for free for 2 months at skl.sh/HAI15. There are a lot of places that don't have any people, like here and here, but also here. Now, people live here in Antarctica, and people live here on the continents, but basically nobody lives between here and here in the Southern Ocean. That's not only because the amphibious human update isn't out yet, but also because barely anyone lives on the few islands there are here. But not only does practically nobody live here, but practically nobody even goes here. Here's a map of the world's air traffic, and here's a map of the world's maritime traffic. Nobody lives here, nobody goes here. It's more isolated than the North Pole, and it's more desolate than Antarctica. If you have something to hide, this is the place for it, and maybe that's why a few countries put at least a moderate amount of effort into holding on to these few pieces of land in the Southern Ocean. One country in particular lays claim to the most isolated piece of land on Earth. Despite their isolation though, believe it or not, there are some islands in the Southern Ocean that actually do have people. Here's South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands, a little bit of Britain in the Southern Ocean. Just because these islands are British doesn't mean that they're filled with cheap beer, emotional repressiveness, and bad political decisions, because these islands are almost completely deserted. They were claimed by James Cook, the guy who claimed everything, and they were or are used for 1, asserting British dominance, 2, killing whales, 3, killing fish, and 4, making stamps. You know that bit of a war Argentina and Britain had in the Falklands War? Well, they had this cool little side war in these islands which Argentina won, but eventually 132 British commandos and a small assortment of warships kindly asked the Argentinians to leave. Eating whale and burning whale oil was once popular until it wasn't, and this was a good area to catch whale, so there were actual real towns here that looked like this, but now look like this. When a country has territory, they get the rights to fish in the waters 200 nautical miles from its coastline, so nowadays around these islands, British people and people who pay the British fish for fish that look like this, this, and this. Lastly, stamp collectors are into stamps from places that are only sort of real, so they spend good money to buy stamps from these islands. Enough so that there's a whole Wikipedia page about it. Now, time to zoom out, because the waters between here and here are actually a pretty international place. You've got some Kiwi islands, a smattering of Australian ones, a spattering of South African ones, a sprinkling of British ones, a scattering of French ones, and for some strange reason, 2 Norwegian ones. Now, this is strange because Norway does not fall into one of the 2 main categories here, countries that are close to the Southern Ocean and countries that colonized half the world. Norway's only territories are Svalbard, Jan Mayen Island, Peter 1 Island, and Bouvet Island, a small uninhabited volcanic island a full 8,000 miles away from Oslo. The nearest bit of land is Gough Island, a British possession 1,000 miles away, making Bouvet Island the most remote place on Earth. No piece of land is further from another piece of land. The island was first founded by a Frenchman who subsequently lost it, but then it was found again by a Brit who claimed it, but then almost a century later some Norwegians came along, built a hut, raised a flag, and decided the island was theirs. Of course, the British fundamentally disagreed with the idea that anyone could just show up, plant a flag, and decide land was theirs, but the British stopped fighting for the island after a while once they realized that for 1, the island was worthless, and 2, that they weren't actually sure if they owned the island since the person who claimed it wasn't 100% sure which island he landed on. History has revealed that the person who claimed it definitely was on Bouvet Island, since there isn't another island for literally more than 1,000 miles, but nonetheless, that's how Bouvet became Norwegian. The most exciting thing to ever happen near the island was 2 big flashes of light in 1979. They were detected near the island by an American surveillance satellite, and the consensus opinion nowadays, not the conspiracy theory, is that this was a joint South African-Israeli nuclear test. This is of course interesting since still today Israel will neither confirm nor deny having nukes, but that's beside the point. What's more interesting is that this area of the world was so deserted that still today we're not completely sure whether that double flash of light was or wasn't a nuclear explosion. It's so deserted that you can seemingly set off a nuke without anyone noticing. Still today, humans only step foot on Bouvet Island every few years. Unlike most other Southern Ocean islands, there is and has never been a long-term settlement on Bouvet. The whole landmass is covered in ice and snow, so there's really nowhere to build a settlement. Even if there was dry land to build a settlement, it's incredibly hard to land a boat on Bouvet as the seas are quite rough, so the main way to get on is by launching a helicopter from a nearby ship. Norway just keeps the island since it really doesn't take much effort to hold on to the territory, and it gives some fishing rights. Given everything, for all those reasons, unless there's significant climactic change, Bouvet will likely remain one of the least visited and the most isolated place in the world. If I were stranded on Bouvet Island, the 3 things I would bring would be skis to shred the gnar, Batman, and an iPad with a Skillshare app. That's of course because Skillshare's app lets you download classes offline, which can teach you how to create fire in Blender, how to make a boat, drawing, and how to build a home recording studio. Skillshare has over 20,000 classes, so if there's something you want to learn, whether it be how to launch a freelance career or how to edit with Premiere, Skillshare probably has a class on it. What's more, you can take any one of these 20,000 classes for free and build up your skills for 2 whole months by signing up for Skillshare at skl.sh/HAI15, and you'll be supporting the show while you're at it.